What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Hockey YouTube channel, episode 24 of season 7, our pre-trade deadline show. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, joined as always by Jack Smith. And if you're watching us live on YouTube, make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the alert so you never miss a show. For all the podcast listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you're first in line when our newest episodes drop. Once again, if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, head over to YouTube, give us a subscribe, and help us on our way to 1,000 subscribers. Jack, we're going to forego the Fans of Philly commercial tonight and just dive straight into our topic-packed episode. We have a lot to get to. There's trades breaking as we speak on Wednesday, the trade deadline eve. As you mentioned before the show, the Penguins are making some moves. We're going to talk Flyers. Tampa Bay made a move earlier today with Seattle. Where do you want to go with this first, Jack? Do you want to kind of talk about where the Flyers are at in the season and how we're at this point now, or where do we want to go?
Let's get the last couple of games out of the way. Then we can talk about what's happened so far in the league and what could happen. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. So Flyers with a disappointing loss last night in the return of Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost, a 6-3 defeat. That's the second time this season they've lost to the Flames by a final score of 6-3. And it's unfortunate because, the 3 goals that Urson let in that span of 2 minutes or so kind of really, did them in. And you knew kind of early on, once they got down 3 goals, it was going to be tough to win that hockey game. They certainly didn't give up throughout the game, but a 3-goal mountain is tough to climb against any team, let alone a team competing for the in the Western Conference playoffs like the Flames. Were you able to watch that game last night, Jack?
Yeah, I did. The third kind of lost my attention a little bit, but it just goes back to what this team is. And when they get the goaltending, they're a pretty decent team. They can probably beat anybody. I think they proved that when their backup goaltender gave them a hell of a performance, and they beat Winnipeg, and they look great doing so. However, Calgary, team nowhere near on the level of Winnipeg, comes to town after playing something like 5 games in 8 days or something like that. You think they'd be tired. And, Urson just doesn't have it. And the team falls into a hole that they're unable to get out of. Their defense wasn't by any means great, but Urson didn't give him a chance to win. And it looked like they might have had a chance to come back, but then Fedotov gives up a goal. Now it's 4-2 going into the second. It's like, they just couldn't overcome the bad start, but it's a ripple effect through the team. When the goaltending's not there, the confidence is low, and you get bad results. It's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious when the goaltending's not there, this team struggles. You could blame it on something else. You could blame the low-hanging fruit if you like, but it's pretty clear that this team is unfortunately driven by their goaltending because it affects the rest of the team on a confidence level, and it shows.
Yeah, and something that I want to question, because I don't question too many things, certainly not about the coaching and decisions, because let's face it, these guys know a lot better than we do. They're around the team every day. But one thing I was questioning a little bit, Fedotov looked pretty good against the best team in the NHL on Saturday. I believe he stopped 29 of 30 shots, helping the Flyers win in a shootout. Would you have considered giving Urson maybe just one more day of rest coming home from Winnipeg, flying on that plane? I'm not sure how long the flight is, but I think it's a pretty good amount. It's an entire day, I think, of traveling. Would you have considered giving him the night off and getting the hot hand back out there for one more night?
I would have considered it. I wasn't flabbergasted. That's not what happened. Torts clearly views Urson as his number one, and I get it. But I would have considered it. I think we're in a part of our rebuild where you should experiment and you should play the hot hand and see what you have in certain assets for the future. And Fedotov's only signed for this year and next. So, I probably would have played him again, but I'm not surprised they didn't.
Yeah, and I wasn't either. But after some of those goals, if you're going to pull them that early, maybe I don't know. Maybe next time.
Hindsight's 2020.
It is. But maybe something to consider in the future. I don't know.
Well, the strangest thing about all this is like leading up to the break and the Four Nations, Urson looked great. He looked great. I mean, since then, the team is what are they 4-1? Like since the Four Nations, and Urson had out of those games, I think he's played 4 of them, and 2 of them were stinkers. At Pittsburgh he didn't look good, and definitely didn't look good in Calgary, obviously. So I don't know what happened. I thought he was going to build confidence off of Four Nations, but it's the voodoo that is goaltending that we're discussing here. So it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not going to pretend like I know about the goalie position, what goes on back there, yada, yada. It's just is a tough one. Kadri just blows a shot by him, and then I think he gives up a weird goal, soft goal.
I just don't like that the way he gave it up, though. Like, it's like not even moving.
Nah.
Then he's confused, doesn't know where the puck is. Then he gets Steve Mason to where it's like off the side of it. It's like, oh God, just get him out. Just get him out. Like,
and it made me think back. So I was talking to somebody up in the press box a couple weeks ago against Edmonton. They'd asked me, so what's the deal with the Flyers goaltending? Is Urson the guy? And I said, I'm a fan. I want him to be the guy. I think he has the capability to be that guy. But right now he can't be because of games like the other night. Like there was a long stretch of the season where Flyer goalies were giving up a bad goal like every game. And to be I think at least a starting goaltender in this league, an above average starting goaltender, you got to be consistent and not consistently bad or not consistently giving up bad goals. The team needs to have confidence playing in front of you. And if you're giving up a bad goal every game, it kind of deflates the team a little bit, I think.
That's the key word, consistency. He is consistently inconsistent, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
You can't be a number one if you're that inconsistent.
It's true. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee last night, Jack. They got their tribute. I'm not going to be, I'll say this. It was a little bit weird that they got a tribute. Not that they got one, but I think that it's only been like a month since they've been traded from the team. I don't think fans really had the opportunity to miss them. So it seemed a little odd. And even to them, I think, getting the tribute because they haven't really gone anywhere. In NHL days, it's been like 2 weeks since they got traded. If you cut out the Four Nations there, so it was a little odd to me. The whole tribute and everything. I get it. I understand it. I'm not poo-pooing it, but it just felt weird to me. How did it seem to you?
It's not so much a tribute as it is just seeing him in other jerseys. Like your one thumbnail of Frost, like in the Flames jersey, high-fiving his teammates in like the line to hit the ice. Yeah. That is stranger to me than anything. Like it's just, we're so used to these guys with Flyers colors and seeing it work. And I also think about like a guy like Farabee who just wanted to be a Flyer, and it just sucks. But at the end of the day, it's a business. At the end of the day, we want to win. So, you knew they were going to do it because it can only look bad if they don't. But it's also when I think of doing something like that, when it's somebody really worth something, it means something to me. When it's guys like that, it almost feels like you're doing them a favor in a way, like, and just being nice kind of thing. So I expected it, didn't think much of it. Is what it is. Doesn't bother me one way or another too much, to be honest.
No, yeah. And I would agree. Yeah. I wouldn't say like it just, you expected it was going to happen. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It is what it is. As far as the play, both players kind of played and have been playing in Calgary the way that they were playing in Philadelphia. Joel Farabee was pretty much invisible. I'm curious to hear how he looked on TV. And Frost, in spurts, you could see that he's a player that with skill. He ended up with 2 assists on the night. I don't know if any of them were primary or like if he actually created the goal, but did end up with 2 assists. And you could see he's a skilled player. Just I don't know if I would say he was very dangerous. How did they look on TV?
I mean, Farabee was outside of his breakaway stop was really not noticeable. Frost played pretty well. I don't know if both assists were primaries. I'm pretty sure The Uyghur goal, I believe I believe that was power play goal anyway. But Frost played pretty well. I'll give him that. He did. Maybe sticking it to Torch because those two obviously did not get along. And at the end of the day, I think Torch is going to ultimately be right when it comes to Frost. But I can't take it away from Frost. He's probably pretty close to one of the stars of the game. I'm not too sure, but like he played pretty well. I can't take that away from him.
Yeah. Okay. And then, that's kind of what it looked like to me. So
Faraby's like 1 goal and no assist in 10 games or something with Calgary. Like, it's not like he needs like to hit the off season and just recalibrate everything. Like, he really does not. He's the one signed, for a couple more years at a hefty price. So it's not looking good for Farabee at this time.
Yeah, I like that little segue that you kind of left open there, how the Flyers were able to move that salary and that contract. We didn't really talk about Kuzmenko at all there, who did score a goal against his former team. And for a player not known for his defense, created his own goal last night with the turnover in the neutral zone and just absolutely fired a laser beam past, Calder Trophy candidate and Dustin Wolf. What did you think of Kuzmenko last night?
That play alone was fantastic. Yes, the offensive steal and his stick handles through traffic and shoots on goal. He had to have used whoever the defender was as a screen, because it looked like if Wolf just stayed still, it might have caught it in his glove. But he kind of like jerked in, and that when Kuzmenko's at his best, when he's scoring 39 goals a year, that's the kind of stuff that you're going to see. I just wish he could do it more consistently. I guess we'll see. It's his third team now. We'll see if he can, but that was awesome to see. We'll see if he's moved Friday. I don't think so. I think they want to keep him. I have this feeling they like him for Michkov and see what he has, but definitely look good if you're going to dangle him out there for something.
And I will say this. So Kuzmenko for me originally in the trade was a guy that, I don't see him here in the future. If I was 100% to 0% on that, I'm now like, 90, 10%, like 10% that I could still, see him here next season. Just by the way that he's playing. I wouldn't say that he's overly impressing, because there are some things that you're like, okay, I could see why they wouldn't bring him back. However, where the Flyers are weak in power play, he's playing well in that bumper spot. He's facilitating, through the D. The defense have to respect him because he's playing in that spot and he's playing it well. The puck movement on the power play is a little different. It's a little bit more fluid. They're moving the puck from side to side a little bit more creatively. So there are definitely positives and pluses to having Kuzmenko. And you're right. If they can figure out something like short term, and he's definitely a play that they would flip at some point. If it's not Friday, if they're able to bring him back maybe next season, something like that. I'm not sure if the player even wants to stay here. But I would be okay with it after being able to watch him for a few games, I think.
Yeah, ultimately we'll see what the deal is and what they do. I don't have thoughts on it one way or another. To get something for him would be great, but what could you really get? Like, at the absolute best, you're getting a late second rounder maybe. Like, even that feels like a stretch. So I'm kind of in the lines of, maybe bring it back, see what you have. But you already have a cluster with certain players and young players, and he's going to be 30. So it's like, does he even fit the I just don't know. If you're doing it for Michkov, I could be swayed. So, I dangle him. If nothing's really worth it, keep him around for a little bit, see what's up.
Yeah. Keith checking in here. Keith's already looking forward to the draft. He thinks we need to go get McQueen, and we'll talk about the draft on a future show, Keith. I like that you're excited already. We're already doing our homework, getting primed up for some draft shows. And
I will say this.
That's all going to come after the trade deadline for sure.
100%. I couldn't be more down for that. Hey, we're going to add some picks potentially for that draft. We'll see. But I will say, McQueen's a guy I should start reading up on more, because I have to let my Micah Misa thing go, because it ain't happening. They've won too many games. Unless they hit the lottery, that guy's gone. So I got to look further down the pike. McQueen looks like a guy where I should start.
The Flyers got to get their hands on one of these Mick players. The McDavids, the
Oh, I
McKinnons.
thought you meant the Irish.
I don't know. Can we say that? I don't know.
Hey, you said it, not me, pal. And I'm Irish, so maybe I can
okay
say
to
it.
make fun of the Irish and Italians.
But you mean
sure.
MC, just MC. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, so the McQueens, the McKinnons, the McDavids. I think we need to get our hands on one of these guys. So we're getting compliments on hats. You guys, if you're interested in HW hats, let me know. If you're following us on social media, give us send us one of us a DM, and we'll get you one of these hats. They're on sale, end of season sale, $20. So we have 2 or 3 left over here. So,
and I appreciate that, but I think they might be talking about your hat.
Mine. Oh, these are not. I'm not selling this, but you get.
I want to make that clear. There are no USA hats, and they are fire, but they're not in our shop.
No, for this, you can go over to the 47 brand site. That's what this hat is. So, yeah, if you want an HW hat, shoot one of us a DM. If you like my hat, 47 brand. Thanks, guys.
Hey.
I thought for sure they were talking about the HW.
They were perfect. That's really all I wanted.
All right, now that
oh, Dan, you bastard.
That's a good one, Dan. Does your hat come in silver? I think. Well,
it's going to be yours. Is going to be silver too when you're the 51st state.
Oh! If things keep going the way they're going here, we might all be rooting for the same team soon, buddy. You're just kidding.
Silver, plenty of silver to go around.
Hey, and chimes in. HW hat fits great. So here's something I want to say. Like, I think originally these things fit a little snug. So I know that's bullshit right there, because I got a small head and that thing was like cutting off circulation on mine at first. So yeah, you do have to wear them in a little bit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into some trade talk here. We kind of teased a little bit. We were going to talk about the cap space with the Farabee trade. And we have 2 players of importance to talk about tonight, Jack. It looks like Keith brought up Laughton first here, so we can go Laughton. So Keith chimes in. After today's trade, what's the value for Laughton got to be? At least a first.
All right, let me read something real quick. I'm getting this off of Twitter. It's from a guy who retweets a lot of Elliot Friedman stuff. His name on Twitter just says Jay. But he just says Freeman on TNT. If you look at the trade that Tampa made today, where they gave up 2 firsts, that guaranteed Philadelphia is looking for a first for Laughton, which we already knew. Toronto has competition for him, though. This is Elliot Friedman. Winnipeg, New Jersey, even with the Hughes injury, and Washington are in there. So to go along with that tells me that Laughton is a first, nothing under a first. I feel like they've already been offered seconds. It's a first and upwards. Now, will I take a first? Of course. I feel like we're playing a game of chicken. Will one of these teams interested? And we've heard as many as quarter of the league. And how many teams acquired centers that you can mark off that list? Because Montreal re-signed Jake Evans. Who else was moved? I could be forgetting somebody. I never really considered Tampa. I never really considered them as a true contender for Laughton. So you obviously take them off the list. I think Florida chose to go defense instead of center, but they didn't really need a center. So who's everybody that we thought was interested? Winnipeg, the Devils, Washington, obviously Toronto. They're all still interested, and I don't know who else is out there. You got teams like Pittsburgh just made 2 trades today. I got to give Vegas Woe some credit. He keeps me well informed. Thank you, Vegas. You are always retweeting or sending me stuff and tagging me and stuff to all these trades, and I'm kind of reading from a lot of that right now. But Tommy Novak and Luke Shen go to Pittsburgh from Nashville for Michael Bunting, 2 teams out of the playoffs making deals. Everybody who's in the playoff run should still be looking to make trades. This is only good news for Philadelphia on the Laughton front and probably on the Risto front too, if you ask me. So that tells me Laughton's value either is where it was at first or has increased.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, you're absolutely correct. I'm going to say I have it on solid word that if that first round picks are on the table for Laughton, and I think the Flyers are holding out for their absolute. I'm going to assume that multiple teams have equal or similar offers.
That's a good one. Real quick, Frederick was traded to Edmonton. Take Edmonton off the list, but still plenty of teams left.
Yeah, so I mean the bigger thing is like guys like Frederick, Yanni Gourde is now off the list as well, who, you know, I thought was a better player than Scott Laughton, certainly younger, I think. Stanley Cup pedigree. So if they're, you know, if you're looking for that kind of thing. But Laughton is, you know, kind of, you know, I don't want to say he's the only guy left, but you mentioned Evans signed in Montreal. A lot of these guys are taken off the market. So I'm trying to connect some dots here. And I truly believe the Flyers are trying to do the best by Scott Laughton, which, you know, some fans might say, you know, what the hell do we owe to Scott Laughton? He's a millionaire. He made his bones here, yada, yada. He's going to potentially go off and win a cup somewhere. The Flyers aren't in the position to, you know, they have an opportunity to do right by a player that's been here his entire career and loves playing here. Other players see that. You know, that's how you become known as a class organization. Scott Laughton doesn't have any trade blocks or no movement clauses, but you're going to do right by a guy, you know. So not that he's really picking where he wants to play, but if he's from the Toronto area and he prefers to play on the eastern side of the country, you have a suitor there. If they're coughing up a first round pick, you know, and you can squeeze a little bit more out of them, I see a match with Toronto. I know they're really up against it cap-wise. I just recorded a show before we came on tonight, Jack, about Ristolainen, so I'm going to use a graphic from that show. So here's the graphic. And it's Toronto's forward. So I mentioned that they were literally right up against the cap. Like they almost have like zero cap space. And I circled David Kampf, right? Outlined them. So the Flyers are going to have to take somebody back in any deal that they do with Toronto. And you might see this and say, you know, David Kampf is a 30-year-old center and he's signed for $2.4 million for the next 2 years. And I'm bringing him up because the Flyers need centers. If they're moving a guy in Scott Laughton and they can get a 30-year-old center back, a guy that can play third line center, even fourth line center, maybe Palin moves up the third line, that's not a bad player to get back. I know he's making $2.4 million. It's less than what Scott Laughton's making right now. And then maybe he's a guy you can move at next year's trade deadline, or maybe he just comes off the books. I don't know. So I'm thinking maybe a player like David Kampf comes back. You get that 2026. I think it's a 2026 first round pick. And maybe they toss in, you know, maybe a second round pick this year or something crazy like that. I circled here. So they have a second round pick this year. Maybe you get the fifth second round pick this year and another first round pick next, and you get a guy like David Kampf. You know, so what do you think about that?
I mean, if it gets me a first round pick, I'm game. And the only thing that makes it better is you're getting a center back, where one issue I have with acquiring other players is the logjam we have. I want to see our guys come up. It's more so on defense. But if you're getting, they don't have any centers, and they moved Morgan Frost and didn't get a center back. So acquiring a center just to make the money work, not retain any money because you're getting a player that's useful for you. You know, and getting a 2026, because I don't think they have a 2025 first, it had to be a 2026 first, is great. That's exactly what they need to do. If that's the small pill I have to swallow, grabbing a center that, you know, to make the money work, I'll live. Believe me, I'll live. I mean, maybe that's more of a Risto move. I don't know. But just do it. I want a first for Laughton. I want a first for Risto. I want them both be in 2026. If you can get any more picks or prospects, that's just extra, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, for sure. There are other teams mentioned, and Ant kind of mentions them here as well. Dallas, New Jersey, Caps. Interesting that he mentioned Dallas. I put out a video earlier. So Dallas has almost $5 million in cap space. The Flyers could potentially send both Risto and Laughton. And the reason I like that, or I brought that up, is I think teams saw what Tampa Bay did. And yeah, they moved two first, but they got two big players that were out there in the same deal, in Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand. I wonder if other teams are out there now like, hey, we have to watch Tampa. They didn't just add one player, they added two. Like, we could potentially see them in the Stanley Cup. And for me, Dallas is that team. Number one, because they're a non-income tax state, and they're probably going to be in the Final Four. Like, mark my words, they'll be there with Tampa Bay. So Dallas sees this. They have $5 million in cap space. Hey, they're calling the Flyers. Yeah, we want Ristolainen. We think we can get Laughton too. We'll send over a player, and maybe you retain, and maybe we send over Laughton for free, basically. Not for free, but with no money, or we retain all of his salary. I think I have a graphic here for Dallas too, just so I can kind of put this on screen for everyone real quick. So Dallas has almost $4.6 million in cap space. They have first round picks in 2026 and 2027, as well as second and thirds. And then I highlighted these three defensemen on Dallas that, if they send one of these guys back, let's say it's Cody Ceci or Matt Dumba, that basically cancels out Laughton's salary. So it's player for player in terms of salary, right? Obviously, they'll have to pony up more because these are not players the Flyers necessarily want. So it'll cost extra for us to take one of them on. And then they can take on Risto. So Risto and Laughton is $8 million in cap. They send back, let's say, a Dumba, and it's a fair deal money-wise. What do you think about that, Jack?
I would definitely do that. I don't know I'm assuming the first round pick plus, if we're going to take Dumba off their hands. There was trades on Twitter I saw that involved Dumba and the Flyers and Dallas and whatnot. So, he's got the rest of this year and then next year, and that's it. I mean, you're moving Risto anyway. You could probably use another defenseman. If it gets you the first plus, I'm all for it. All for it. And just real quick on what you were saying about, we've seen in the Eastern Conference, Florida add. We've seen Tampa Bay really add. And this comes back to Toronto. Toronto, who getting past the first round of the playoffs one time in the last however many years. Are they going to sit back and do nothing? I don't see that. This is all their division as well. Florida and Tampa. Boston's kind of bowed out. But are they not? They got to do something too. They can't go out in the first round again. They can't even really go out in the second round. Guess who's going to be a free agent in Toronto this year? Both Tavares and Marner. They got to do something this year and then figure stuff out later. It just makes too much sense. There's too many teams that could use both of these players. And we're seeing what the prices are. As I've been saying, it's silly season. You see players go for stupid deals. Just our turn to be one of those teams that acquires a good haul in a stupid deal.
Yeah, it's certainly shaping up that way. Look, I think Risto may be the best defenseman available on the market today. And, the way things are going, as far as, third line center that can help out in the playoffs, Scott Laughton's name is up there too. There are some names moving around. Return wise, I think it's pretty clear what the returns Danny Briere is looking for in terms of packages, right? We've seen it in the Provorov deal. We just saw it in the Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee deal. I think we should be expecting back maybe reclamation project type player. That's kind of why I highlighted Dumba, and I don't think Lyubushkin's playing well in Dallas either. So for me, those would be reclamation type guys that the Flyers could flip down the road. Look, years ago, Jack, we said this, the Flyers should be trading for reclamation project type D. Get them with Bradshaw, coach them up the same way they did with Sean Walker. Coach them up and flip them. So they should be looking for guys like Matt Dumba, Lyubushkin, and say, hey, we'll take these guys off your hands if it helps facilitate a deal, right? If you guys want Risto and Laughton, just send us back Dumba, send us back your first, and send us a higher up prospect or a reclamation prospect that can't really crack your lineup yet, but will definitely be in ours. You know what I mean? Give that prospect the opportunity. So it becomes player pick prospect, and you're flipping the player again next year. That's what I think they should be looking for. I think they are looking for that, quite frankly.
I'm glad. You know what? And it's awfully quiet, and that's a good sign. That's how Danny and Keith Jones work. When things are quiet, things tend to happen, and it might not be what we expect, but we're getting awfully close, baby. Wednesday is going to come to a close. You're going to have all day Thursday and then only a half a day Friday. We got to see something. I'm at the point now, Jim. And I know you'll probably try to talk me off a ledge, but if nothing happens, I'm gonna be disappointed. It's too much of an opportunity right now. I just come on. There's so many teams should be only talking to the Flyers right now. Like, come on.
I mean, we keep hearing too now that it's a massive seller's market and yada yada.
I said that before. Like, come on.
I'm like,
many players were available. If you needed something, and a lot of teams are in the mix, like, come on, it makes too much sense.
Well, so my thinking goes, okay, it's a seller's market on Wednesday, 9:00 at night. When does that dry up? When does it become, because 2 days ago it wasn't a seller's market, right? There was really nothing happening.
We were hearing that. Don't be surprised if neither player gets moved, and I think I even kind of started to buy into it a little bit. But like, when you think about it, and you're seeing the trades that are going down, like Pittsburgh traded with Nashville, that's great. Like, it affects nobody. Like, if anything, it just takes more players off the market. Even the Blues started winning, so now Schen's off the market. Like, so it's like your only options are very limited. Laughton's close to the top of the list. As far as defense is concerned, Risto is either at the top of the list or damn close. Something's got to give.
Yeah, it certainly seems, and you're right, a lot's been quiet from the Flyers. I mean, we've seen stuff come out on 32 Thoughts, which I think you read something on. Who was it that you were reading about earlier?
Friedman read that on TNT in reference to the trade Tampa made and how that ups. Like, it said it confirmed that Philly's looking for a first for Laughton, which I think we all kind of know. Yeah. But to have Friedman confirm it, I guess, is a good thing. So the fact that if all these teams are still talking to the Flyers means there must be a first on the table somewhere. Like, sure. I think it's just a matter of maybe doing right by Laughton or maybe squeezing more out of these teams. I hope it's the latter.
So something I thought was interesting earlier in the week, Friedman mentioned on 32 Thoughts, and I'm not sure if this was in our notes. I don't remember seeing it, but if you guys have been listening to our show for the last, I don't know, I think 2 years now, because this was 2 summers ago when Cam York signed his bridge deal. 2 years, $3.2 million, 1.6 per. I said it on here. The Flyers wanted to sign Cam York to an extended contract. They didn't want to sign him to the bridge deal. I guess agents knew that the cap was going to go up in a couple seasons, and York wanted to sign a short-term bridge deal. Perfectly fine. He's betting on himself kind of thing, right? And so during that time period, there's been a lot of talk out there that York is the Flyers' best defensive defenseman. I think even Tortorella said it at one point. I don't believe that he still is. That's my personal opinion. But he's playing on the top pair. Does that make him a bona fide top pair D? In my eyes, no. I just think he's playing top pair by default. But if you're the agent and you're Cam York, you are absolutely playing as a top pair defenseman in the NHL because it's just a fact that you are. You know what I mean? Like, you're the top pair defenseman for the Philadelphia Flyers. And so
is Andrew McDonald.
So when you come into negotiations, it starts with that. I'm a top pair defenseman in the NHL and I want to be paid with one. And what did Friedman say? They're not even they're not close in negotiations, and I'm not sure why that information would be leaked to Friedman, because I've said this before. Nothing gets to Friedman about the Flyers unless the Flyers are letting it be leaked, unless they're telling him what it is. Because this regime is airtight, So if there's anything that gets out, it's because they want it out. So with this York stuff, Jack, what do you make of this? Because look, we've known this. I've said this the last 2 years on York. He wants to get paid this summer. He's going to be an RFA. What do you do with him?
I don't think anything gets done at the trade deadline. However, I do think, much like when the Flyers acquired Ryan Ellis, going back to that trade deadline, the frameworks of the deal were discussed. So gauging interest, I agree with what you said. Nothing happens by accident. This was leaked for a reason. And I do think that maybe this is a separate deal. I think it's an off-season deal. Maybe it's even a negotiation ploy, depending on how the negotiations go. And it sounds like not good right now. And I don't, you got to view York like you bet on yourself. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's played as good this year as he did last year, especially at the beginning of the season. He needed to be benched and had to reset. Typically works when Torch benches a player to come and they reset. Just saying. But he's been better since. But he's still, if you're betting on yourself and you were stumbled a little bit out of the gate, it's not a good sign. I don't think he's got I don't want to say he has no offensive game, but the guy was drafted and you expected an offensive game. He's yet to really show that. So there is potential there, but potential that may not be unlocked at this point in his career. There's a lot of question marks. I think the Flyers realize they have defense. They have names they can fill, or they can even sign or trade for as well to fill some needs. They need to find a center. And outside of draft picks, they don't have a whole lot to offer to acquire a center except for a guy like York. So it's like 3 birds, 1 stone. You don't think you want to pay him what he's worth or what he thinks he's worth because you don't think he's worth that. It can help you get what you're looking for. And it solves that problem. So I think that is why they're leaking it now. Maybe with all the offers they're fielding, maybe some teams come in with what if we do this for Risto? No, that doesn't work, huh? Okay, call back. What about York? No, I didn't think. Yeah, we were just thinking, Now all of a sudden you have a team that's interested in York come the offseason. Hey, they asked at the deadline. Let's see what they did. Let's come back to that in the offseason. And I think we saw that happen with Ryan Ellis. It could definitely happen now. And I think that's why they let it out, to see who bites, who nibbles, and go from there. And it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I heard you guys aren't close with Cam York. Would you be open to moving him, kind of thing? And maybe they're just seeing what's out there, but it's something that I would explore as well. I mean, there's a lot of good RFAs out there this summer. McTavish is one that I think Philly fans have mentioned. There's another guy that's an RFA, Jack, and maybe you can help me remember who that is. It's a forward, a center, I believe.
For who?
I don't know I can't even remember the name or who he plays for, but it's McTavish, and there's another guy that fans mention as a guy that they wouldn't mind offer sheeting. And
Wyatt from I don't know if he's a center, but from Dallas, I think Wyatt Johnson, is it?
Okay. And so here would be an idea if the team needs, a top 4, left defensive defenseman, why don't we swap RFAs? We just saw it with Frost and Peltier. You know what I mean? So that's an idea for me. And instead of stepping on toes and, offer sheeting someone else's RFA, why don't we just swap these guys? We'll sign them, you sign them, and we'll swap them, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't have sometimes the looming threat of the potential offer sheet could lead to a trade, because why not? Mm-hmm. Look, I don't want you. Sometimes in the past, like with Chris Gratton, when he was an offer sheet for the Flyers, they did the offer sheet, they gave up all the picks, and then they traded players back to get the picks back. So cut out the middleman and just make the deal. So I could see something like that potentially happening. I'm just going down a quick list here of potential. Okay, this is not the list I thought it was, so I will be back. I'll see if I can get that other center for you. I don't think it was Wyatt Johnson. I think Rossi might even be potential RFA.
Okay.
Wyatt Johnson is definitely somebody I would like. Is he a center? I don't really follow Dallas all that much.
Rossi would fit right in with the.
He is a center. Wyatt Johnson is a center. So you guys got to be Wyatt Johnson then. Yeah, that's for sure. I've heard his name mentioned so much, and I just wasn't 100% sure if he was a center, but turns out he is. So yes, he is doing things in Dallas. Hey, aren't we interested in making trades with Dallas? Maybe It's not Risto. Maybe it's York. Laughton and York. Ooh, that's juicy.
Yeah, would certainly be interesting, man. So, as unlikely as it may be, it's something that the Flyers need to be looking at, because in my opinion, they have a guy. So this is how I see York. I'm not saying that Andre is going to come in and immediately replace everything that York does. I know that Cam York is being played on the top pair on the Flyers. In my opinion, the Flyers already have York's replacement, and he plays on the same goddamn line that Cam York plays on, and Travis Sanheim. Put him back on his natural side. This way we get the Sanheim back from earlier in the year. Remember when he was having a hell of a season and he made Team Canada? That he was playing his natural side, right? Let's get him back on his natural side, right? We'll call up Andre to play on our second pair. I think he's a very capable second pair defenseman. Look, when he first came up, everyone's calling him Chemo Timonen, right? And then when I'm saying, look, he can replace Cam York. He can play the power play, something Cam York can't do. He can play 5-on-5 minutes. If you want him to play PK, he can, right? He's a smaller but tenacious guy. Like Andre is a beast. He just needs the opportunity, and he can be a very good second pair defenseman. So what you'd end up looking for is a top pair, more defensive guy to allow Sanheim to do his thing offensively.
And I'd also be more inclined to move York for a potential center, because I don't know how else you get a potential number 1 C or damn good C. But we've seen Florida win with no true number 1 defenseman. They've got a hodgepodge of damn good defensemen, don't get me wrong, but they didn't have to develop a Victor Hedman to make it happen. But they did need top-line centers. And I would rather go trade some things now for the center, including a York, even at a chance for it, not a guaranteed thing, just a chance, and figure the defense out later. We got a lot of names we've drafted. We got Bond coming. So you got other guys coming, Andre, as you mentioned, and you could still trade or sign guys. So you're not really doing that with center. Haven't seen anything yet. So I'd rather make that move. I'd rather do that. And, I take the risk at fulfilling my D than figuring out another way or drafting. Don't laugh, Jim. Or drafting a center at like 12 and hoping it's our guy. Like, I'd rather go get the center and figure out defense.
It seems to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, that the front office has learned that it's going to be easier to acquire a top center than it will ever be to acquire a number 1 workhorse defenseman. Like the Kel McCarrs and the Miro Heiskanens and who's the guy you just mentioned, Jack? I'm sorry. Hedman. Like these guys are just not going to be available. Yeah, they're just not going to be.
They're completely off the table. The only closest thing I can think of is a 34-year-old Chris Pronger being acquired for 3 first, technically, what was it? 2 first-round picks, Joffrey Lupul and Lucas Spiza, who was a first-round pick the year before, like an absolute haul. Yeah. And for $1 million, if you can name the other player that came back with Chris Pronger, I will send that to your Venmo.
Let me think about this.
You'll never get it. You have to look it up. Don't look it up, you cheater. Same, anybody in the chat, don't look it up.
Did he go down to the AHL or did he actually play on the Flyers?
I don't know if he played on the Flyers. He was definitely an AHL guy.
Wow, this is good. I'll let somebody in the chat get that, because I'm gonna have to, I would have to stop the show to really concentrate on this. That's a good question. Though.
The only hint I'll give was Pat Maroon was on, I want to say Spittin' Chicklets, talking about it and his time with the Flyers. Because Pat Maroon was with the Flyers organization and got in trouble for being a dickhead. It is what it is, at like practice or camp, and pretty much got sent home. But his roommate was this player, and this player who was a great guy, but like didn't wake him up for practice, and he was late. It just led to his many issues. So if you listen to that podcast, you might.
I did hear that story. God damn it. If somebody puts it in the chat, I'll send them one of these last HW chat hats here.
I didn't mean to get off the rails there.
No, that's good. That's a good question. And I definitely watched that part too. But okay, we'll move along here. So we talked York. We talked Ristolainen a little bit. Do we need to talk about him more? Did we cover him enough, you think?
The only thing I'll ask you is, like, how much different do you feel? I guess this can go for Laughton too, or anybody really, but really Risto. 2 days ago, I think we were pretty like, yeah, he's not getting moved. How do you feel now?
Ristolainen? Well, we haven't heard much, right? Like, I'm not sure if it's manufactured smoke with Risto, but Sarah Valley tweeted something about Dallas the other day. I'm sorry, like 10 days ago. That you have Dallas Twitter accounts making up trades for what they would trade for Ristolainen, and that would lead me to believe that there's talk that there's maybe down in the Dallas market that they're really looking at Ristolainen, and some of the packages they were coming up with are like, yeah, I would take that as a Flyers fan.
Our group chat was saying like some of those trades are like Flyers wanted that. I'm like, really? Because I think I might.
Yeah.
And we haven't mentioned it, but Heiskanen's out to what, the second round of the playoffs, you said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the way the playoff structures works, if anything, that's a great reason to add a defenseman. It gets you fine till now, and then you have extra going to the playoffs. There's no cap. You're just golden. We see Tampa completely and Vegas completely take advantage of that, and it's only worked out. And I'm sorry, one team got 2 cups out of it, the other got 1. Maybe it's a good idea. Dallas should definitely be a front runner for Risto.
Yeah, I've seen that as a fit for Ristolainen even before Heiskanen. Like that was like, that's a team that could be in on them. They like the big rangy D. Western Conference is tough, physical. I'm thinking of the Vegas Knights. Like they're a team that has long, rangy, physical D. So teams need to compete with that. Dallas and Vegas, I fully expect those 2 teams to be there after the first round, potentially in the conference finals. So yeah, I think right now Dallas may have the most complete team, but there's always that chance they get a tough matchup in the first round because it's so tough out there. And without Heiskanen, they kind of need just Ristolainen. Just makes sense. He makes too much sense for them.
Absolutely, it makes sense for a couple teams, but especially Dallas. So I mean, I'm telling you, Jim, if we don't come away with a trade, I'll evaluate the trade later. Just a trade. Come the 3 p.m. deadline, I'm gonna be very disappointed.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be the sky is falling. I'm not gonna say fire torts because no, not Danny torts, but it really makes it. It's the definition of a missed opportunity, and a pretty big one if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean it's trade deadline day, right? Like we want to be involved. We want something, especially like if you're creating content and you're talking to your buddies or you have shows like these, whatever it is, you want something to talk about. And for those selfish reasons, yeah, I would love to see a Laughton trade or a Risto trade. I know that it's definitely not Pavel Brendel. I think they got it from New York, right?
Yeah, no, I have. Good throwback name though.
Yeah, strikeout.
And I like this comment. Risto is an upgrade over CC. Just playoff Risto.
Yeah,
difference. Playoff Risto. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's an upgrade over all 3 of the guys we put up there. I think they really goofed signing Lyubushkin to that 3-year contract down there. He's another one of those big physical guys, but from what I heard or what I read, he's having a tough time adjusting down there. So like I wouldn't be surprised if he was a player that came back to the Flyers. And I know he's got that 3-year contract. Maybe the Flyers are done taking players with long term. So then it's like, okay, well, we don't want the 3-year guy, but we might be willing to take on Dumba, who, has the same length of contract as Scott Laughton. And you can put him on your right side with somebody still. So I don't know. Dallas makes way too much sense, though. Is basically
do they have enough money for next year to be acquiring even with us taking almost $4 million back to acquire $8 million? Like I think you said they have $4 million available and change, plus almost $4 million going back to acquire roughly.
Let me see.
I guess it'd be 3 plus 8.1. They'd be acquiring 8.1 for this year and next, and then Laughton will be a free agent after that.
You know what? Let me try. I'm going to try to do. Let me look this up for you. I'm going to try something different on our show tonight, Jack. Just give me 1 second. I'll bring up Dallas's Puckpedia, cap projections, and then I'm going to show everybody a little trick we can do here on the show now. We could do a screen share. And Can you see this?
Yeah, I thought somebody else joined.
Here's
Yeah.
the projected cap space. So, yeah, they should be able to fit. I'm not sure what their contract situations look like, but right now it says they have an annual cap hit of $95 million. Next year it goes down to $70 million, and the cap goes up $7 million. I assume they have players they need to sign.
Well, Wyatt Johnson, apparently.
Yeah, so yeah, quite a few guys they have as UFAs. A lot of older guys.
I mean,
so
they
this could be the last year. Like they might be feeling some kind of pressure.
Look at that Jamie Benn making $9.5 million. He's not resigning for that, if he at all. He's 35 years old.
Right, 35. You have Granlund, 33. Matthew Shane, 34. Dadonov, 30.
They've got a lot of money coming off the books.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe they can, and maybe they can still keep Wyatt Johnson.
Yeah,
that's
so
interesting.
Yeah, there's opportunity. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing now, unless there's anything else we wanted to look up. Is there?
Not that I get not at this time that I can think of, but I mean,
so
there you go.
So something new I learned. Okay, get your abacus out. What is that? Do you know what that is?
I've heard the word before. Hold on.
Are you Googling real quick?
I got to Google abacus. Oh, he'll probably tell us before
I probably could have done it with the screen share.
I got to be careful. If you pull up an abacus and it's something.
Wait, yeah. Is that a joke? Is that a trick? A dirty, rotten trick?
It's a counting computer counting device.
like a calculator?
What I typed in here doesn't say any. Yeah, used for calculating. Okay.
Now I'm getting made fun of.
Old school.
Thanks a lot, Dave. I got computer.
Rows of wires or grooves along which beads are slid. Oh, I know what it is. Oh my God, that is old. Christ in heaven.
Oh shit.
Jesus, it's 2025 for God's sake.
All right. Yeah, I'll have the abacus out for the next show.
I thought it was I was thinking succubus. I was way off.
What the hell's a succubus?
It's some kind of like half vampire chick thing. My wife. No, I'm kidding.
And we move on. All right. So we have less than 10 minutes left. Did we cover all of our topics? If not, I'm sure we can talk more trades. We talked Kuzmenko. We talked Risto, Laughton, York, Eric Johnson. Does Eric Johnson get moved, Jack?
I get if he wants to, and then it's like probably not for much. Maybe do him solid. He's not like he hasn't won. Maybe he wants to stay. I heard the Scott Laughton Last Supper photo was his idea.
Yeah,
he's great. He's great for the locker room, great for the team. He's really not playing at all. Up to him. And what do you get? The 7th. So if they want to do him a solid, maybe. But he's just another name. I mean, dark horse name basically. The only other dark horse name I thought I saw was like Zamula, but I don't see that happening. I think they're going to ride. He's still too young, if you ask me. What are you really getting for that? So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if that's all we see, Eric Johnson to wherever for a 6th or a 7th, I'm still going to be very disappointed.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. It just feels like this is the end for Scott Laughton, I think. Like this feels like the year, in my opinion, with some of the trades we're seeing. Does
he still like next year? He's not traded. And now next year is the last year. I don't even know if the value's still there at that point. I can't believe he's held on to it as long as he has, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think we're going to roll the dice for another year. Like, ooh.
No, I agree. I think having that extra year is helping his value at this point because his play it has declined since 2 years ago. I'm not saying he's playing terribly, but he's not the player that he was 2 years ago now. I want to bring up something real quick because this could affect. It could take a team out of the running for Scott Laughton. Darren Drager on Insider Trading reports that Toronto would consider trading all 3 of their prospects in Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, and Ben Danford for Braden Shen, Jack.
Holy cow. Have they seen him play?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying he's bad, but you're going to just empty the cupboard for Shen at this point in his career? It's interesting.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I guess. I thought the Blues had pulled themselves out of that.
Yeah, I mean, so there would have to be some serious cap moved there because I'm pretty sure Shen's making north of 6 million a season, and if they were going to have to, move the moon and the stars for Scott Laughton, who's making half of what Shen's making, that's going to be that would be an
Can
interesting
you
deal to
imagine if
make.
Toronto does that and they still get bounced in the first round? They'd have to go to at least the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, come
Yeah.
on. But maybe
Yeah.
they are more willing to go all in on somebody because of the free agents they're going to have and the tough decisions they're going to make. I think it'd be a stupid move. But
Yeah.
what do I know?
All right, and then before we wrap up, I do want to talk a little bit more about this Penguins and Predators trade because it's a weird one. And let's go. Let me bring up one more time. So I will do this with the viewers. I'm going to put us back on screen share, and we're going to look up the salaries of these players and the contracts because I want to know what you think for Pittsburgh. Is this a move? Like a last ditch chance, like to make the playoffs, because you acquire a guy like Novak, who's a solid player. I'm not sure what kind of. All right, so they acquire a player with term in Novak, 3.5 for the next 2 years. He is a center, and they acquire a player like Luke Schenn, who's under contract for another season as well. A player that around this time of year, teams, this is a player that playoff teams usually want on their teams, like the Tampa Bays, like the Predators, like the Maple Leafs. And here's Pittsburgh trading for Luke Schenn. Do you think they're going to try to make one last push to make the playoffs, or are they, they're going to try to flip Luke Schenn, do you think?
To be honest, when I first saw it and tried to think of it, I thought it was a flip. So I heard that teams were trying to get both Schenn brothers. I thought maybe Pittsburgh thought like, well, if we grab the cheap one, maybe we're involved in some other deal. I don't think they're making a push. I think they're too far gone. And if they get in, they're just going to get embarrassed in the first round.
Yeah.
I don't know about next year. He'll be 36 years old next year. I mean, how many more after now he can add the Pittsburgh jersey to his repertoire? Has he got them all, or has he only got a couple more he's got to go to before he's played for every single team in the league?
Yeah.
I mean, where are we at? So no, I don't see it. And if that is what their GM is thinking, that's silly. That's really silly. You could have got. You could tell me you couldn't trade Michael Bunting elsewhere for more instead of that. If that's what you're thinking, to me that's silly.
That it was an interesting move. I'm going to assume it was let's do Novak for Bunting and then we'll send you over Schenn so you can try to flip him for a pick or something. I don't know.
That makes more sense. It really does.
It's interesting.
They don't have the goaltending to do anything. The goaltending has been dog shit.
I just saw they called back Connor Jarry up too, which is interesting. I thought it was interesting seeing a trade go down by two GMs, I think, with different philosophies on rebuilding. Barry Trotz kind of bought into what his team did last year, the overachieving maybe, and crashed and burned this year, adding all those free agents and Stamkos and Brady Shea and Marchessault. Now he's making these kind of moves at the deadline while Kyle Dubas is in Pittsburgh now, right? And yep. he's the king of the rebuild. He loves trading those for those picks and whatnot. So interesting move from Pittsburgh and Nashville there. I don't think Pittsburgh will be done. It'll be interesting to see what Nashville does. They still have a player like Ryan O'Reilly with 2 years left on his contract. He doesn't have any no trade clauses either. But the word on the street is they're giving the Scott Laughton treatment. They're going to try to do good by him, even though he doesn't have any clauses in his contract. So we'll see. I don't think we're done with seeing moves. We have a whole nother day leading up to Friday.
Better not be, man. But things happen my way. Friday, right around 1:30, 2:30, Flyers go crazy, making all sorts of deals. Let's go.
There you go. All right. So I think we're coming to the end of our show here. Do you have anything you want to add in before we wrap up, Jack?
That's it. Just tune in on Friday. HW's going live. We're going to be at hopefully around 1:30. Deadline's at 3. Maybe a little reaction afterwards as well. See what happens. It's one of those shows where you just kind of log on and hope something happens for you to talk about. You never know. Or something happens Thursday, we're talking about it on Friday. Either way, something better goddamn happen.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. And at least from us, we are we're going to have a special guest. We're going to have Mr. Derek Settlemeyer from the Nasty Knuckles podcast join us. I'm working on more guests to fill up some time during those 2 hours to join Jack and myself. So we'll announce guests tomorrow if we get them. If we don't, then you're just stuck with me and Jack for 2 hours, which I'm sure you all can't wait to do. So yeah, 2 more sleeps till the trade deadline, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to subscribe. Help us on our quest for 1,000 YouTube subscribers. Like and leave a comment for us on YouTube. Give us a subscribe on Apple Podcast or Spotify and set alerts so you're first to know when we drop a new show. For all of our latest episodes, articles, and updates, head over to hwhockey.net. I just did a quick video on Ristolainen. Make sure you guys check that out. We'll see you guys Friday. Well, I'll see you guys after the game tomorrow night. Flyers have a game tomorrow still. Winnipeg Jets. Coincidentally.
Nobody get hurt, baby.
Yeah, nobody get hurt. So see you guys tomorrow night. Jack and I will see you guys Friday. Happy pre-trade deadline, everybody. Bye-bye.
Happy.